The morning sky above Jakarta turned dark without warning. Children playing in the schoolyard stopped their games and looked up. Teachers stepped outside, shielding their eyes from an impossible shadow that blocked the sun. Above them, ships, the size of city blocks, hung in the air like metal clouds. Maya Chen was showing her math homework to her friend when the light disappeared. She was 8 years old and had never seen anything like the massive gray vessels floating above her school. The ships made no sound, but the air felt heavy and wrong. "Everyone inside now," Mrs. Sari shouted, but her voice shook with fear she tried to hide. Similar scenes played out across the planet. In London, 10-year-old James was feeding pigeons in Hyde Park when the ships appeared. In Sao Paulo, 12-year-old Anna was helping her grandmother hang laundry when the sky darkened. In Cairo and Mumbai, in every major city on Earth, the same impossible sight repeated itself. The ships belonged to the Zephyrian Empire, though no human knew that name yet. For 3,000 years, they had ruled a galaxy where the strong took what they needed from the weak. Today, they needed workers for their mining colonies. Admiral Keithvar stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking down at the blue world below. His gray skin had a metallic shine under the ship's lights. 3 eyes arranged in a triangle on his face studied the planet with cold interest. To him, Earth was just another resource. "The scans are complete, Admiral," his aide reported. "The species shows promise. Young ones between 8 and 16 cycles appear most suitable for conditioning." "Excellent," Keithvar replied. His voice sounded like grinding metal. "Begin collection. Standard procedure. Take 50,000 units from various locations." The Zephyrians had done this before. They had taken children from dozens of worlds. The pattern was always the same. Appear suddenly, take what they needed, and leave. Most species were too shocked to fight back. Those who tried found their weapons useless against Zephyrian shields. The collection began at noon, Earth time. In Jakarta, strange pods dropped from the ships like silver rain. They landed softly in schoolyards, playgrounds, and neighborhoods. When they opened, tall figures in dark armor stepped out. They carried weapons that hummed with energy. Maya tried to run when she saw the soldiers, but her legs would not move. A blue light from their weapons made her feel sleepy and confused. She watched other children around her stop moving too. They all had the same blank look on their faces. The soldiers worked quickly and silently. They gathered the children into groups and guided them toward the pods. Maya wanted to cry for her mother, but the strange light made her thoughts fuzzy. She could only walk where the soldiers pointed. Around the world, the same thing happened. In London, James found himself walking toward a silver pod with 20 other children from the park. In Sao Paulo, Anna joined a line of kids from her neighborhood. They all moved like sleepwalkers, unable to resist or call for help. Parents and teachers tried to fight back, but normal weapons did nothing against the soldiers' armor. Police bullets bounced off like raindrops. When adults got too close, the soldiers used their blue lights on them too, making them fall asleep. Dr. Sarah Chen was in her laboratory when the news started coming in. She was a scientist who studied tiny particles, but today her work meant nothing. Her phone rang with a call that changed everything. "Sarah." Her husband's voice was breaking. "They took the girls, Maya and Lynn. These soldiers took them." Sarah dropped her equipment and ran. She drove through streets filled with screaming parents and confused police. When she reached Maya's school, she found other parents. Standing outside staring at empty classrooms, the principal, Mrs. Dewey, was crying. "They took 43 children," she said. "The soldiers just walked in and took them. We couldn't stop them." By evening, the reports were coming in from everywhere. 50,000 children had been taken from every continent. The ships had lifted off as quickly as they had arrived, disappearing into space with their young prisoners. Colonel Marcus Webb was at a military base in Colorado when the alerts started flooding in. He was a Special Forces soldier who had seen combat in many places, but nothing had prepared him for this. His son David had been taken from a summer camp in California. The military tried to track the ships, but they moved faster than anything humans had ever built. Radar lost them within minutes of their departure from Earth's atmosphere. "Sir," a young officer reported to Webb. The ships used some kind of jump technology. They're gone. Webb stared at the empty radar screen. Somewhere in space, his 15-year-old son was a prisoner on an alien ship. World leaders held emergency meetings. The President of the United States spoke to the prime ministers of other nations. Everyone had the same questions and no answers. Who were these aliens? Why did they take the children? Where did they go? On the bridge of his flagship, Admiral Kethvar reviewed the mission reports. The collection had gone perfectly. 50,000 young humans were now stored in holding areas, ready for transport to the mining colonies. The species showed typical reaction patterns, his aide reported: shock, fear, and disorganized resistance. Their technology is primitive. No threat to our operations. Kethvar nodded. Inform the Imperial Council that Earth's harvest is complete. The human juveniles will be processed and assigned to work details within 10 cycles. He looked once more at the blue planet growing smaller in their wake. Mark this world for future collections. The breeding population appears stable. We can return in 20 cycles for another harvest. The Admiral had made this same report dozens of times about dozens of worlds. He expected no trouble from Earth. In his experience, primitive species accepted their losses and moved on. They were too weak and scattered to pose any real threat to the mighty Zephyrian Empire. He was wrong. Backcam. On Earth, something was beginning that the galaxy had never seen before. Parents who had lost their children were not accepting their loss. They were not moving on. In her empty house, Dr. Sarah Chen stared at her daughter's toys scattered on the floor. Her husband sat beside her, both of them too shocked to speak. But behind Sarah's tears, something cold and determined was taking shape. Colonel Webb stood in his son's room, holding a picture of David in his football uniform. Around the world, 50,000 families were feeling the same crushing pain and growing rage. The aliens had made a mistake. They had taken human children. Earth was about to show them what that meant. 3 days after the children disappeared, Dr. Sarah Chen received a message that would change everything. It came through an encrypted email from someone calling themselves the Network. We know you lost your daughters. We lost children too. If you want them back, come to the address below. Come alone. Tell no one. Sarah stared at her computer screen. Every government agency had told her the same thing. Wait, hope, and let the professionals handle it. But the professionals had no answers. They had no plan. They had nothing but empty promises. She drove to an abandoned warehouse on the edge of Jakarta. Inside, she found 30 other people sitting in folding chairs, parents, grandparents, brothers, and sisters. All of them had the same hollow look in their eyes. At the front of the room stood a man Sarah recognized from the news. Colonel Marcus Webb, the American Special Forces officer whose son had been taken. Next to him was Dr. Yuki Tanaka from Tokyo, whose daughter had vanished from her school. There was Professor Ahmed Hassan from Cairo, whose grandson was gone. They took our children, Webb said simply. The governments of the world are doing nothing useful, so we will do something ourselves. Dr. Tanaka stepped forward. She was a computer expert who worked for a big technology company. We have been tracking communications. The ships that took our children sent signals into space. We know the direction they went. Sarah felt her heart speed up. You found them? We found clues, Professor Hassan answered. He was an engineer who built rockets. But we need more help. We need the smartest people on Earth working together. Over the next week, the network grew. It started with 50 people in 5 cities. Then it was 200 people in 20 cities. Then it was thousands. They were not soldiers or spies. They were regular people who had lost everything that mattered to them. But many of them were very smart people with very useful skills. Dr. Elena Rodriguez from Mexico was an expert on alien life. She had spent her career wondering if aliens existed. Now she knew they did, and she wanted to understand them. Professor Liu Wei from Beijing was a weapons designer. He had always built weapons to protect China. Now he wanted to build weapons to protect all human children. Captain Rachel O'Connor from Ireland was a pilot who flew fighter jets. She had trained to fight human enemies. Now she needed to learn how to fight in space. The network worked in secret. They used coded messages and hidden meeting places. They shared information that governments kept classified. They broke laws when they needed to. In a basement in Mumbai, they studied pieces of metal that had fallen from the alien ships. The metal was unlike anything on Earth. It was stronger than steel but lighter than aluminum. It could conduct electricity in ways that seemed impossible. In a garage in Detroit, they built copies of the blue weapons the alien soldiers had used. The weapons fired energy instead of bullets. They could stun people or cut through thick walls. In an office building in London, they decoded alien computer signals. The aliens used math that was more advanced than human math, but it followed patterns that smart people could learn. Every piece of information went into a growing database. Every discovery was shared with network members around the world. Slowly, they began to understand their enemy. The aliens called themselves Zephyrians. They had been taking children from other planets for thousands of years. The children were used as workers in dangerous places where adult slaves might rebel or die too quickly. Dr. Chen learned that Maya and Lin were probably on a planet called Kef 7. It was a mining world where the children dug for rare metals. The conditions were terrible. Many children got sick. Some died, but some survived. And the network was going to get them back. Colonel Webb started training people to fight. Not everyone in the network could be a soldier, but many could learn basic combat skills. More importantly, they could learn to work as a team. "We are not trying to win a fair fight," Webb told a group of volunteers in an old factory in Ohio. "Fair fights are for sports. This is about getting our children back alive. We will use every advantage we can get." The training was hard. Parents who had never held weapons learned to shoot. Grandmothers learned to plant explosives. Teenagers, whose siblings had been taken, learned to hack enemy computers. Dr. Tanaka made a breakthrough when she cracked the alien communication system. The network could now listen to Zephyrian messages across the galaxy. What they heard made them sick with rage. The aliens talked about human children like they were cattle. They discussed which children were good workers and which were defective units that should be disposed of. They joked about the stupid humans who could not protect their young. But the network also learned something important. The aliens thought humans were weak and primitive. The Zephyrians expected no rescue attempt. They thought Earth was too backward to travel between stars. Professor Hassan had news about that. "We have been building rockets for 60 years, he told a gathering of engineers. "We know how to get to space. What we did not know is how to get to other stars, but now we have their technology." The network had recovered enough alien technology to understand how their faster-than-light travel worked. It used principles of physics that humans had only dreamed about. But dreams could become reality when your children's lives depended on it. In shipyards around the world, construction began in secret. Old cargo ships were converted with alien technology. Military vessels were upgraded with new engines and weapons. Even passenger planes were modified to carry special equipment. The governments of Earth knew something was happening, but they could not stop it. The network had members in every country, in every organization, at every level. When officials tried to interfere, they found their orders ignored or their systems mysteriously crashing. 6 months after the children were taken, Dr. Chen stood in a command center hidden beneath a mountain in Switzerland. Around her, screens showed the progress of 50 different projects across the globe. The network now had 12 million members. They included Nobel Prize winners and high school dropouts, generals and janitors, billionaires and people who had lost their jobs to join the cause. "We have 37 ships ready for space travel," reported Captain O'Connor, who now commanded the network's growing fleet. "We have weapons that can penetrate Zephyrian armor. We have the location of 18 alien worlds." Colonel Webb looked grim. "We also have something else. Reports from other species that the aliens have enslaved. The Zephyrians have been doing this for 3,000 years. There are millions of children from hundreds of worlds working in their mines and factories. Doctor. Chen felt something cold settle in her stomach. This was bigger than just getting Maya and Lin back. This was bigger than just saving the 50,000 human children. Then we saved them all, she said quietly. The room fell silent. What Dr. Chen was suggesting was impossible. Humans had just learned to travel between stars. The Zephyrian Empire controlled thousands of planets and had military technology far beyond Earth's capabilities. But everyone in that room had seen impossible things happen before. They had seen ordinary people learn to build spaceships. They had seen grieving parents become expert soldiers. They had seen a species that had spent its entire history fighting itself unite for a single purpose. Professor Hassan spoke first. The children have been gone for 6 months. We need to move soon before... He did not finish the sentence. Everyone knew what happened to slaves who became too weak to work. Dr. Tanaka's fingers flew over her keyboard. I am sending the attack. Plans to all fleet commanders. We launch in 2 weeks. As the meeting ended and people returned to their secret work, Dr. Chen thought about her daughters. Maya would be 9 years old now. Lin would be 7. If they were still alive, they were probably scared and lonely and wondering why their parents had not come to save them. We are coming, Sarah whispered to the empty air. And we are bringing friends. Outside the mountain, the first ships of humanity's hidden fleet were rising into the night sky, heading for the stars. Earth was done asking nicely for its children back. Now it was time to take them. The first reconnaissance mission to Kep 7 brought back footage that changed everything. Dr. Chen watched the secret recording in a bunker deep beneath Geneva, surrounded by other network leaders whose faces grew darker with each passing minute. The screen. Human children worked in massive underground tunnels. They carried heavy loads of glowing ore that burned their skin. Their clothes were rags. Their bodies were thin from hunger. Worst of all were their eyes, empty and hopeless, like the light inside them had died. Maya Chen appeared on screen for 3 seconds. She was dragging a cart that weighed more than she did. Her face was dirty and scarred. She looked like an old woman trapped in a 9-year-old's body. Dr. Chen made a sound that was part sob and part growl. Around the table, other parents were crying or cursing. Some just stared in silence that was louder than screams. Colonel Webb turned off the recording. His voice was steady, but his hands shook. The children from other species have been there longer, some for decades. The aliens have broken their spirits completely. They work until they die. Professor Hassan looked up from his notes. His grandson had been in the footage too, barely recognizable. How long do human children typically survive in these conditions? 18 months on average, Dr. Tanaka replied, reading from alien records they had stolen. The Zephyrians consider that acceptable. They plan to take more children from Earth next year, to replace the ones who died. The silence that followed was different from any quiet the room had ever held. It was the silence of people deciding to cross a line they could never uncross. Dr. Chen spoke first. We need to talk about what we are really going to do here. We are going to rescue the children, Captain O'Connor said. No, Dr. Chen shook her head. Rescue means we take our children and leave. But what about the millions of other children? What about the next harvest from Earth? What about every planet these monsters will visit in the future? Webb understood immediately. You are talking about war. Real war. Not just a rescue mission. I am talking about making sure this never happens again, Dr. Chen replied. I am talking about making sure no parent anywhere in the galaxy ever has to see what we just saw. Professor Hassan pulled up a star map showing Zephyrian territory. Red dots marked over 1,000 worlds where alien children worked as slaves. The Empire has been doing this for 3 millennia. They have perfected the system. Even if we rescue everyone today, they will just rebuild and start again. Dr. Tanaka's computer showed intercepts of alien communications. They are already planning the next harvest, not just from Earth, but from 6 other newly discovered worlds. Billions of children. Captain O'Connor leaned back in her chair. So, we are not talking about rescue. We are talking about extermination. The word hung in the air like a curse. Humans had always prided themselves on being civilized. Wars had rules. Even enemies deserved mercy. Genocide was the greatest crime imaginable. But these aliens had stolen children. They had tortured them, worked them to death, and laughed about it. They planned to do it forever. The Zephyrians see kindness as weakness, Webb said. They have no concept of mercy because they have never needed mercy. Every species they have encountered either submitted or died. Dr. Chen looked around the table at people who had become her family over the past months. Scientists and soldiers, engineers and pilots, all united by the same terrible loss. If we do this, she said slowly, we cannot go back to who we were before. The galaxy will remember us as the species that committed genocide. Our children will grow up knowing their parents became killers. The alternative, Professor Hassan replied, is that our children grow up as slaves, if they grow up at all. The vote was unanimous. Over the following weeks, the network transformed from a rescue organization into something the galaxy had never seen, a war machine powered by parental love and rage. Dr. Rodriguez led a team that developed biological weapons, specifically designed to target Zephyrian DNA. The aliens had superior technology, but their biology had weaknesses that human scientists could exploit. Professor Liu's weapons division created devices that turned the aliens' own tech against them. Nanobots that could dissolve Zephyrian ship hulls from the inside. Computer viruses that made their weapons fire on their own troops. Poison gases that were harmless to humans but lethal to aliens. The most horrifying development came from Dr. Petrov, a Russian biochemist whose daughter had been taken from a school in Moscow. He created what he called the children's gift, a plague that spread through alien neural networks, causing them to experience every moment of pain and fear their child slaves had ever felt. They wanted our children to suffer, Petrov explained, to the Weapons Committee. Now they can share that experience. Captain O'Connor's fleet grew to over 200 ships, all hidden in the asteroid belt beyond Mars. Each ship was equipped with technology that made Zephyrian vessels look primitive by comparison. Human engineers had taken alien science and improved it with something the aliens lacked: desperation and unlimited creativity. The network also made contact with other enslaved species. Not the children, they were too broken to help, but adult survivors who had escaped over the centuries. These refugees provided intelligence about Zephyrian society and military structure. The aliens, it turned out, were not just evil. They were bureaucratic evil. Their empire ran on schedules and procedures. They had protocols for everything except dealing with enemies who ignored all the rules of civilized warfare. They expect us to follow patterns, I'd explained Kreeth, a refugee from a world enslaved 2 centuries earlier. All species fight the same way. Armies against armies, ships against ships. You humans fight differently. Webb had been developing the new human way of war. It focused on terror rather than conquest. Human forces would not try to occupy alien worlds. They would simply destroy everything that allowed Zephyrian civilization to function. We hit their infrastructure first, Webb explained to his commanders. Power plants, communication networks, transportation hubs. We make it impossible for them to coordinate a response. What about civilian casualties? Asked Captain Martinez, a former naval officer whose twin sons had been taken. Webb's expression was stone. They made the choice to base their entire civilization on child slavery. There are no civilians in the Zephyrian Empire. The final preparation was psychological. The network brought in therapists and counselors to help their people prepare for what they were about to do. Many volunteers were having second thoughts about genocide, even genocide of child slavers. Dr. Chen addressed the concerns directly in a speech broadcast to all network members worldwide. We are not becoming monsters, she said. Monsters hurt, the innocent for pleasure or profit. We are becoming something else, the price that evil pays when it goes too far. The Zephyrians chose to build their empire on the suffering of children. Now they will learn what happens when you threaten human children. She paused, thinking of Maya working in those terrible tunnels. Some of you are worried about your souls, Some of you think we are damning ourselves by doing this, but I have seen what they do to our children. I have seen the hope die in my daughter's eyes. If stopping that costs us our souls, then our souls were not worth saving. The fleet launched on a Tuesday. 200 ships filled with humans who had convinced themselves that mercy was a luxury they could not afford. Behind them, Earth continued its normal routines. Most people had no idea that their species was about to commit its first act of interstellar genocide. Ahead of them lay the Zephyrian Empire, confident and secure in its power, completely unaware that it had made the worst mistake in its 3,000-year history. It had taken human children. Now it was going to learn why that was different from taking anyone else's children. The war for the galaxy's soul was about to begin. The attack began at exactly midnight, Galactic Standard Time, across 12 star systems simultaneously. Admiral Kethvar was reviewing supply reports on his flagship when every communication screen in Zephyrian space went dark at once. On the EID mining world of Kep-7, the first sign of trouble was when the orbital defense platforms simply vanished. Not destroyed, vanished. One moment they were there. The next moment they were expanding clouds of dust. Human ships materialized out of nowhere, their hulls black as space itself. They moved in patterns no Zephyrian computer could predict, striking with weapons that seemed to bend the laws of physics. Lieutenant Vexhal was monitoring the defense grid when the attack started. "Admiral, we are receiving distress calls from all sectors. The attackers they are not fighting like any known species." Kethvar rushed to the command center. On the tactical display, red warning symbols covered the galaxy like a rash. "Who is attacking us? The hegemony? The Crystal Collective?" "Unknown ships, Admiral. The designs do not match any in our databases." The human fleet did not behave like any military force the Zephyrians had ever encountered. Instead of targeting military installations first, they went straight for the infrastructure that kept Zephyrian worlds functioning. On Kep-7, human ships dropped strange devices into the atmosphere. Within minutes, every electronic system on Do, the planet, stopped working. Communications went dead. Life support failed. Transportation networks collapsed. In the dark tunnels where human children had worked for months, the Zephyrian guards found their weapons and armor suddenly powerless. Their neural implants, which connected them to the command network, began causing excruciating pain. Dr. Petrov's plague was working perfectly. Maya Chen was pulling an ore cart when the lights went out. She had learned not to hope for anything good after 7 months of slavery. But when she heard alien guards screaming in the darkness, something stirred in her chest that felt like joy. Emergency lighting flickered on, powered by backup systems the humans had not yet destroyed. Maya saw her guard writhing on the ground, clutching his head as the neural plague showed him every moment of fear and pain he had caused to children over his career. A new sound echoed through the tunnels, human voices speaking human languages. "This is Colonel Webb of the Earth Liberation Force. Human children, move toward the sound of my voice. Stay calm. We are here to take you home." Maya started crying. After months of believing she would die in these tunnels, help had finally come. Around her, other human children began moving toward the rescue teams, some crawling because they were too weak to walk, but the rescue was only part of what was happening across Zephyrian space. On the industrial world of Thekmor, human ships released clouds of nanobots that dissolved every structure larger than a house. Factories that had operated for centuries crumbled to dust in minutes. Spaceports collapsed. Government buildings simply ceased to exist. The Zephyrian garrison sent fighters to intercept the human ships, but the human vessels seemed to phase in and out of reality. Zephyrian weapons passed harmlessly through targets that were there 1 second and gone the next. Captain O'Connor commanded the lead human ship in the Thekmor attack. Her vessel had been a cargo freighter 8 months ago. Now it was equipped with technology that made it nearly impossible to hit and completely impossible to stop. "Target the communication relay," she ordered. "I want every Zephyrian in this system to know exactly why this is happening." The message that broadcast across Zephyrian space was simple and terrible. "You took our children, this is the price." Admiral Kethvar tried to coordinate a defense, but his empire was falling apart faster than he could understand. Every time he established communication with a world, that world would go silent within hours. The humans were not conquering Zephyrian territory. They were sterilizing it. "Sir," his aide reported, "we are receiving surrender offers from 14 systems. They want to negotiate." "Open a channel," Kethvar ordered. "Maybe these mysterious attackers could be reasoned with." The response came immediately, but it was not what he expected. Dr. Chen's voice filled the command center, speaking in perfect Zephyrian. "We do not accept surrender, we do not negotiate. You will return every child you have stolen, and then you will face judgment for your crimes." "This is Admiral Kethvar of the Imperial Fleet," he replied. "What species are you? What do you want?" "We are humans from Earth," Dr. Chen answered. "You took 50,000 of our children 7 months ago. Today you learn what happens when you threaten human young." Kethvar felt his blood turn cold. The primitive species from that backwater world, impossible. They barely had spaceflight when he harvested their offspring. "You cannot be human," he said. "Humans are weak, primitive. They have no interstellar capability." "Correction," Dr. Chen replied. "Humans had no interstellar capability. We do now. We learned from the technology you so kindly provided when you invaded our world." The channel went silent, leaving Kethvar staring at displays showing the systematic destruction of his empire. The human strategy was unlike anything in military history. They did not try to hold territory or establish control. They simply destroyed everything that allowed Zephyrian civilization to function, then moved on to the next target. World after world went dark. The Zephyrian military could not find an enemy to fight because the humans struck without warning and disappeared before reinforcements could arrive. Professor Hassan's ships hit the Zephyrian naval base at Korthak with weapons that turned the laws of physics into suggestions. Massive battleships that had dominated the galaxy for centuries found their hulls dissolving at the molecular level. The base commander sent a final message before his ship disintegrated. "They fight like demons. They show no mercy. They do not want anything from us except our complete destruction." On Kep 7, the rescue operation was proceeding smoothly. Human medical teams worked frantically to stabilize children who were dying from months of abuse and malnutrition. Maya, Chen was loaded onto a medical transport along with dozens of other rescued children. As her ship lifted off from the mining world, Maya looked down through the porthole and saw Zephyrian cities burning. The aliens who had enslaved her were running through the streets as their world collapsed around them. She felt no pity for them. Dr. Chen monitored the rescue operations from her command ship, but most of her attention was focused on the strategic display. Half the Zephyrian Empire was already gone. The other half was in chaos as refugees fled the advancing human fleet. "Ma'am," reported Captain Torres, "we are receiving communications from other enslaved species. They want to know if we will free their children too." Dr. Chen did not hesitate. "Yes, we free them all." The human fleet split into smaller groups hitting slave worlds across the galaxy. Each ship carried rescue teams and enough firepower to level continents. The Zephyrians had never faced an enemy that could be everywhere at once. Admiral Kethvar made one last attempt to salvage his empire. He gathered the remaining Zephyrian fleet at their capital world of Zeftar and prepared for a final battle. "Ships," he broadcast, "prepare for full defensive formation. We make our stand here." The human response was not a battle. It was an execution. 200 human ships appeared in orbit around Zeftar simultaneously. They did not engage the Zephyrian fleet. They simply broadcast a message that every Zephyrian could hear. "For 3,000 years you have built your empire on the suffering of children. Today that empire ends. Any Zephyrian who wishes to live will surrender immediately and prepare to face trial for crimes against the young." Some Zephyrian ships fired on the human fleet. Their weapons had no effect. Human technology had evolved beyond anything the galaxy understood. Other ships tried to flee. They found their engines disabled by human nanobots that had been spreading through Zephyrian space for hours. Most ships simply powered down their weapons and waited for whatever came next. Admiral Kethavar sat in his command chair, watching his empire die around him. 3,000 years of Zephyrian dominance had ended in 3 weeks of human fury. How? He whispered to no one in particular. How did they become so powerful so quickly? If Dr. Chen had been there to answer, she would have told him the truth. They became powerful because someone had threatened their children, and humans would do anything to protect their young. Anything at all. Maya Chen stood in the medical bay of the rescue ship, looking at her reflection in a mirror for the first time in 8 months. The girl staring back at her looked like a stranger, thin, scarred, with eyes that had seen too much. But she was alive, and she was going home. Around her, other rescued children were receiving medical treatment. Some cried constantly. Others had not spoken since their rescue. A few, like Maya, watched everything with the careful attention of people who had learned that safety was never guaranteed. Dr. Sarah Chen found her daughter standing by the porthole watching the stars. Maya did not run into her mother's arms like in the movies. Instead, she studied Sarah's face carefully, as if making sure this woman was really her mother and not another alien trick. "Hello, Mama," Maya said finally. Her voice sounded older than her 9 years. Sarah knelt down to her daughter's level. "Hello, sweetheart. Are you ready to come home?" Maya nodded, but she kept watching the stars. "Are they all dead? The aliens who took us?" Sarah hesitated. The truth was complicated. Most Zephyrians were dead, but some had surrendered and were being held for trial. "The ones who hurt you will never hurt anyone again," she said. "Good," Maya replied. There was no emotion in her voice, just simple satisfaction. Across the galaxy, similar scenes were playing out on hundreds of rescue ships. Human children were being reunited with their families, while children from other species met humans for the first time. Many of these alien children had been slaves for so long they had forgotten their homeworlds. The Zephyrian Empire was gone. In 3 weeks, humans had destroyed a civilization that had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. But winning the war was easier than deciding what to do with victory. Colonel Webb stood in what had once been Admiral Kethavar's command center, now serving as the headquarters for human operations in former Zephyrian space. Reports flooded in from across the galaxy as human teams tried to establish order in the chaos they had created. "Sir," Captain Martinez reported, "we have identified over 4 million enslaved children from 200 different species. Some are so young they do not remember their home worlds." Webb rubbed his temples. Destroying the Zephyrian Empire had been the easy part. Figuring out how to return millions of children to worlds that might not exist anymore was proving much harder. "What about the Zephyrian survivors?" he asked. "Approximately 50,000 in custody. They are requesting to speak with our leadership about surrender terms." Webb almost laughed. "Surrender terms? They are in no position to negotiate anything." Dr. Chen arrived at the command center still wearing her medical uniform. She had spent the past week treating rescued children, many of whom were dying from the abuse they had suffered. "How many children did we lose?" she asked without preamble. Webb consulted his reports. 14,000 human children died before we could reach them. Unknown numbers from other species, the Zephyrians. They worked them to death. Dr. Chen closed her eyes. 14,000 families would never see their children again because humans had not acted fast enough. That knowledge would haunt her forever. "The surviving Zephyrians want to negotiate," Webb continued. "What should we tell them?" Dr. Chen thought about the children who had died in alien mines, about Maya's empty eyes, about the countless other species that had suffered under Zephyrian rule for millennia. "Tell them there will be trials," she said. "Every Zephyrian who participated in the slave trade will face justice. Those who are found guilty will be executed." "All of them?" Webb asked. "That could be millions of Zephyrians. They built their entire civilization on child slavery," Dr. Chen replied. "Every adult in their society knew what was happening and chose to profit from it. Yes, all of them." The trials began 6 months later in a courthouse built from the ruins of the Zephyrian capital. Representatives from every enslaved species attended to give testimony about centuries of suffering. Admiral Kethvar was the first to stand trial. He sat in the defendant's chair, still unable to understand how his mighty empire had fallen to a species he had dismissed as primitive. Dr. Chen served as the chief prosecutor. She presented evidence of systematic child abuse spanning 3,000 years. She showed recordings of Zephyrian officials joking about which species had the most resilient children for hard labor. The defendant claims he was just following orders, Dr. Chen told the court. He claims he did not know how badly the children were being treated, but we have his personal communications where he refers to child slaves as breeding stock and discusses which worlds would provide the best harvest of young workers. Kethvar tried to defend himself. We were maintaining order in the galaxy. Every civilization needs workers. It is the natural way of things. Dr. Chen looked at him with the same expression she might give to an insect. You kidnapped children and worked them to death for profit. There is nothing natural about that. Trial lasted 3 days. The verdict was unanimous, guilty on all charges. The sentence was death. As Kethvar was led away, he made one final statement. You humans think you are better than us, but you have become exactly what we were. You have conquered the galaxy through violence and terror. Dr. Chen watched him go without expression. He was not entirely wrong. Humans had become something darker in their quest to save their children. But they had also become something the galaxy desperately needed, a species willing to stop evil no matter the cost. The trials continued for 2 years. Most Zephyrians were found guilty and executed. A few thousand who had actively opposed the slave trade were allowed to live under human supervision. Meanwhile, the massive task of rebuilding began. Humans found themselves rulers of a galaxy they had never wanted to conquer. The rescued children posed the biggest challenge. Many could not be returned to their home worlds because those worlds had been destroyed or abandoned centuries ago. Others had been slaves for so long they had no families to return to. Captain O'Connor, now promoted to admiral, proposed a solution. We create new worlds for them. Safe worlds where no one can hurt them again. The project took 5 years. Humans terraformed dozens of planets specifically for the rescued children. Each world was designed around the needs of specific species, with human guardians to protect them and help them heal. Maya Chen, now 14, visited one of these worlds with her mother. She watched alien children playing in parks that humans had built for them, learning skills in schools that humans had designed for them. They look happy, Maya observed. Some of them, Dr. Chen agreed. Others will never fully recover, but they are safe now. Because we made sure of it, Maya said. There was pride in her voice, but also sadness. She understood the price that had been paid for this safety. Dr. Chen had been elected as the first speaker for the silent, the official representative of all rescued children in the new galactic government. It was not a job she had wanted, but it was one the galaxy needed. The new laws she helped write were simple and absolute. Any species that harmed children would face total extinction. There would be no warnings, no negotiations, no second chances. Colonel Webb, now Admiral Webb, commanded the human fleet that enforced these laws. His ships patrolled the galaxy constantly, watching for any sign that child slavery might return. Do you think we did the right thing? Captain Martinez asked him during a patrol near the galactic rim. Webb thought about his son David, who had returned from Zeph 7 traumatized but alive. He thought about the 14,000 human children who had not made it home. He thought about the millions of alien children who had been saved. We did what we had to do, he said finally. Whether it was right or wrong, history will decide that. The galaxy was peaceful now, but it was the peace of fear rather than the peace of harmony. Every species knew what happened to those who threatened human children. The knowledge kept them in line, but it also made them wary of the humans who had proven capable of genocide. Dr. Chen often wondered if they had saved the galaxy or simply replaced one form of tyranny with another. Humans did not enslave children, but they ruled through the threat of absolute destruction. Sometimes she thought about the person she had been before the aliens took Maya, a scientist who believed in progress and peaceful cooperation. That person seemed like a character from a story now, someone naive enough to believe that evil could be stopped with reason and good intentions. But when she watched Maya and her sister Lynn playing in their garden on Earth, safe and free and alive, she found she could live with what humanity had become. They had saved their children. They had saved all the children. And if that made them monsters in the eyes of the galaxy, so be it. In the end, there were worse things to be than the species that protected the young, even if that protection came at the point of a sword.